Mr. Chairman, I rise today to discuss shocking revelations reported in the media starting last Wednesday, that is 9 days ago, and continuing for several days afterward, regarding the scope of the NSA's spying program, including both foreigners and Americans. The NSA is the National Security Agency. Its duty is, as part of DoD, to protect us against foreign attacks, just as DoD itself is supposed to protect us against foreign attacks. And DoD, like the CIA, is on the side of the firewall dealing with foreign threats, as opposed to the FBI and the Justice Department, who deal with domestic threats. As of a week ago last Wednesday, The Guardian reported that a particular court order had ordered Verizon, the largest cellular telephone company in America, to turn over its call records for all of its calls. All of its calls. I have the document from the Guardian's website here in front of me. It is a document that it was issued as a secondary order by what's known as the FISA court. That court is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, established under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Let's start with the name of the court. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. As the name implies, as the name of the act implies, the jurisdiction of the court is limited to foreign surveillance and foreign threats. This is by statute. The order itself was printed and posted at the website. Millions of people have seen it since then. And what it purports to be, I say purports to be, but in fact the agency involved, the NSA, has not denied that this is a valid, real document. It says that the court, having found application of the Federal Bureau of Investigation for an order requiring the production of tangible things from Verizon, specifically Verizon Business Network services, et cetera, orders that the custodian of records produces not to the FBI, but to the National Security Agency, a component of the Defense Department, upon service of this order and continued production on an ongoing daily basis thereafter for the duration of this order, unless otherwise ordered by the court, an electronic copy of the following tangible things. Right here. Take a look at it. These tangible things are identified in the order as follows. All call detail records or telephony metadata created by Verizon for communications, 1, between the United States and abroad, which sounds like it might be international, and then 2, wholly within the United States, including local telephone calls. On its face, this is an order for Verizon, our largest cellular telephone company, to turn over call records for every single call in its possession. Mr. Chairman, that includes calls by you. It also includes calls by me. In fact, it includes calls by me when I'm calling my mother or my wife or my daughter. And for those who are listening on C-SPAN or otherwise, it includes every call by you. Now, the first question that comes to mind is, first, is this just for Verizon? Well, we don't know for sure at this point, but the NSA has not denied that there are similar orders in extent for MCI, for AT&T, for Sprint, for every telephone company that carries any significant amount of data or calls in this country. Another question is, how far back does this order go? The order itself is dated on its face April 25th, 2013. One of the more interesting things about this order posted at the Guardian's website is that it has no starting date. Under this order, under the plain terms of this order, Verizon has to go and give the federal government, specifically the Department of Defense, the NSA, all of its call records of all of its calls going back to the beginning of time. And this obligation continues until July 19th of 2013, presumably because the order will be renewed at that point upon request of the NSA and the FBI. Let's be clear about this. This appears to be an order providing that our telephone companies providing service to us turn over call records for every single telephone call, regardless of whether it's international or not. Now, if somebody had come to me 9 days ago and said to me, Congressman Grayson, do you think that the Defense Department is taking records of every telephone call that you make or I make or anyone else makes? I would say, no, I have no reason to believe that. It would shock me if it was true. Well, it is true, and it does shock me. Why should we have our personal telephone records, the records of whom we call, when we speak to them, how long we're talking, why should we have that turned over to the Defense Department? What possible rationale could there be for that? Well, I'll tell you what I think the rationale might be, because somehow that makes us safer. Well, let me say to the NSA and to the Defense Department, you can rest assured there is no threat to America when I talk to my mother. Now, what exactly is wrong with this? What's wrong with this, first of all, is that there is a firewall between the Defense Department and the CIA on the one hand, and the FBI and the Department of Justice on the other. One protects us from international threats, the other one protects us from domestic threats. That's been the law in America since the 1870s, when Congress enacted and the President signed the Posse Comitatus Act. And this order crushes that distinction. It eliminates it, it obliterates it, it kills it now and forever. Now, the second thing that is offensive about this court order is that it clearly violates the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment reads as follows: the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the purses or the things to be seized. Now, first of all, when the government seizes your phone records, unless you happen to be Osama bin Laden or someone close to him, there is no reason why the government would believe, or have reason to believe, probable cause that you've committed a crime, or you're going to commit a crime, or you have any evidence about someone committing a crime. There's no probable cause here. Secondly, the Fourth Amendment requires particularity. There's no particularity when the government insists by court order and under threat of further action that Verizon or AT&T or Sprint or anyone else be required to turn over their phone records to the government. There's no particularity. And this really is the essence of the matter, because if you ask the NSA for a justification, they'll say, well, it's legal. What do you mean it's legal? Well, according to their published statements, including a statement by their director last Saturday, they maintain that it's legal because of a single Supreme Court case decided in 1979 that said that the government, specifically local police authorities, could acquire the phone records of one person once. That's the case of Smith v. Maryland in 1979. And because the Supreme Court says that at that point, the government could acquire the phone records of one person once, the NSA is maintaining that its entire program is legal and that it can acquire the phone records of everyone, everywhere, forever. That is a farce. Now, the other document that came to light last Thursday, in other words, 8 days ago as I speak, was a document, again, posted at The Guardian's and then later at the Washington Post's website. And this is a document that is a PowerPoint presentation, which, according to the reports, was a PowerPoint presentation to analysts working for the NSA. This PowerPoint presentation is labeled PRISM, US 984XN overview, or the SIGAD used most in NSA reporting. And what you see to my right is a reproduction of what was posted at the website a week ago. First of all, note that there are certain logos at the top of the page. Gmail, which for those of you who's not familiar, is the largest provider of email services and hosting. It's run by Google. Facebook, many of us are familiar with that. I think my children are all too familiar with it. Spend an awful lot of time on it. Facebook allows, among other things, private messaging between friends. Hotmail, which is Microsoft's email server and service. Yahoo, which performs a variety of functions, including, among other things, hosting a large number of web pages. And by the way, when you go to their web page, they can tell who you are from your IP address. And also, a very widely used email service. Google, I think Google needs no introduction, but I've already introduced it. Google allows you to do web searches. It, together with Microsoft, has almost 90% of the web search market in the United States. They keep a record of the searches that you make based upon your IP address. Skype, which is a telephone company that transmits calls electronically over the internet. Paltalk, I'm puzzled, I don't know what that one is. YouTube, which is the largest host of videos in the world, and again, can tell which videos you're looking at by your IP address. And AOL Mail, which, as it sounds, is the America Online Mail email service. This document is dated at the bottom April of 2013, meaning last month. Or maybe 2 months ago. Let's take a look inside. One of the pages that's been produced on the Guardian and Washington Post website is this. And by way of background, it's been reported that this is part of a longer document. It's 41 pages long. Only 5 pages have been released to the public through the Guardian and through the Washington Post. So I'm sharing with you the 5 pages that were released a week ago and are now public. Let's take a look at this one. This one says that the NSA's prison program performs the following functions. And bear in mind, this is reported to be a training document given to NSA analysts to explain what they can do in this program. Who are the current providers to the program? Microsoft, Hotmail, etc., Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Paltalk, YouTube, Skype, AOL, and Apple. And what are they providing? Specifically, as the document said, what will you, meaning the analyst, receive in collection? Collection from surveillance and stored communications. The document said it varies by provider. We don't know how it varies. But in general, what you get is the following. Email. The NSA gets email from these providers. Video and voice chat. Videos, photos, stored data, VoIP or VoIP, which is an electronic version of your actual words when you are speaking on the phone. VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. It's your voice. File transfers, video conferencing, notification of target activity, including logons, in other words, are you on your computer or not, etc., online social network details, and what is blithely referred to as special requests, as if all that weren't enough already. Now, you might wonder, how does the government actually get this information? Well, the 5 pages that have been released gives us one answer to that question. Let's take a look at that. If you look at the bottom, the green rectangle, you'll see that it says that PRISM collection is directly from the servers of these U.S. service providers: Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, Facebook, Paltalk, AOL, Skype, YouTube, Apple. The plain meaning of this, since it's addressed to the trainees at the NSA, the people who will actually be doing the analysis of this data, and the injunction on the left which says you should do both. The plain meaning of this is that the NSA apparently has the capability to collect directly from the servers of these service providers the information on the previous page. In other words, our emails, our chats, our videos, our photos, our stored data, our voice over internet protocol, our file transfers, our video conferencing, our logins, etc., etc. Now, there's an interesting distinction between these two documents. In the first case, with regard to the court order, the NSA's position is that's a valid court order. We regard it as legal. If you don't like it, that's too bad with you. Go change the law. To which I say, fine, I'm going to try to change that law. With regard to the second document, the situation is a little more ambiguous. What the NSA has said publicly is that the green rectangle is actually not correct. Now, bear in mind, no one said that this is not an NSA document. No one said that it's photoshopped. No one said that it is anything other than what it purports to be and what it was reported as. However, the NSA has taken the position that their own document is wrong for reasons that we don't know, and the NSA, in fact, does not have the capability to directly collect from the servers of these companies your emails, your voice over internet protocol, your photos, and everything else. They say that they just don't do that. However, we're still waiting for an explanation of how this green rectangle ended up in this document. If it's not true, they need to explain how and why it's not true. The NSA also says that for reasons not evident from this document at all, they don't do this for U.S. citizens. Now, that raises a host of questions. You might think that there might be something else in this document that says that, but the NSA hasn't maintained that. In other words, they haven't said, if you look somewhere else in this document, you'll find that we don't do this for USA citizens. Unless you think that this is somehow selective on my part, on anybody else's part, it's been reported that the whistleblower provided this entire document, all apparently 41 pages, to The Guardian, to the Washington Post, and they've decided on their own to release only these 5. So, if there's something that indicates that the NSA is only doing this for Americans, apparently it's not in this document, and we've reached the strange point where people are being trained in the NSA that they will have the ability to get the emails and the other information on Americans, but somehow are told later separately that's not correct. In addition to that, the NSA says that there is some process by which they can distinguish between the emails of Americans and the emails of foreigners. Frankly, that is a technology so advanced to me, it seems like it might be magic. I used to be the president of a telephone company. I have no idea. I have literally no idea how I could distinguish between the email accounts of an American and a foreigner. I don't know how to do it. Maybe they can tell us how they do it, if they're doing it at all. That's the real question, if they're doing it at all. I don't know how they could possibly say, this email account is for a foreigner, this email account is for an American. And if they can't, that means they're taking all the stuff, American and foreign, and having it, using it, looking at it, and destroying our privacy rights. That really is the heart of the matter here. I don't understand why anyone would think that it's somehow okay for the Department of Defense to get every single one of our call records, regardless of who we are, regardless of whether we're innocent or guilty of anything. I venture to say that there are Americans who have never even had a parking ticket, and yet the Defense Department is pulling their call records as well. Now, eventually we will find out whether the NSA's own document is misleading, and the NSA is not pulling email accounts and emails and photos and VoIP calls on people who are Americans. Because if you read this document, it sure looks like they are. You know, this is not the first time that we have had this problem. This is not the first time that the government has entered into surveillance on people without probable cause. Many of us remember that there was FBI surveillance of Martin Luther King, including wiretapping and bugging his personal conversations. I thought, perhaps naively, that we've moved beyond that. And in some sense, we have moved beyond that, because now they're doing it to everyone. In fact, one could well say that we are reaching the point where Uncle Sam is Big Brother. I submit to you that this program, although the proponents depict it as American as Apple spy, this program is an anti-American program. We are not North Koreans. We don't live in Nazi Germany. We are Americans, and we are human beings. And we deserve to have our privacy respected. I have no way to call my mother except to employ the services of Verizon or AT&T or some other telephone company. I'm not going to string two cups between my house and her house 70 miles away. That doesn't mean that it's okay with me for the government, and specifically the Department of Defense, to be getting information about every telephone call I make to her. It's not okay with me. I submit to you, Mr. Chairman, it's probably not okay with you. And I know that for most of the people who are listening to me today, it's not okay with you either. Ben Franklin said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." I agree with that. We do not have to give up our liberty to be safe. I have already heard from people who tell me that they're afraid. That they're afraid they're going to be blown up by some terrorist somewhere. That they're afraid their personal safety is at risk. And it's okay with them if the government spies on them. Well, it's not okay with me. And I stand here on behalf of the millions and millions of Americans who are willing to say, it's not okay with me either. I'm fed up. I'm not going to take it anymore. When we had a civil war, and there were 1 million armed men in this country who rose up heavily armed to fight against our central government, we did not establish a spy network in every city, every town, every village, every home. But that's what we've done right now. When I was growing up, 10,000 nuclear warheads pointed at us. And some people believe there was a communist under every bed. Even then, we did not establish a spy network as intrusive as this one. I submit to you that this has gone way too far, and that it's up to us to tell the Defense Department, the NSA, the so-called intelligence establishment, we've had enough. We are human beings. We are a free people. And based upon this evidence, we're going to have to work to keep it that way. That's what I'll be doing. I hope you'll join me. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2013, The gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designated